Hi, this is Bob. Today's 10-minute tour is going to be part 3 of the accounts payable vendor setup. And I've got to take a little bit of a step back to that first screen and clarify a few items and a couple things that I missed. So we'll do that first. Alright, I'm going to go back to that Fastenal vendor and add some notes to stuff. The first thing is this handy little button here. Now, I'll admit, we don't do this, but you could. And it's kind of a slick little thing. It plugs in that vendor's address and then shows that on a map as to where it is, gives some information about it. So if you're missing a phone number, sometimes that may give you a phone number to try and connect with. It's something that you could take a screenshot of and send to somebody if you've got your driver's trying to find the location or something weird like that. So print directions, that type of stuff. So that's one handy little thing that's on there. The second thing deals with conditions. So if you're not familiar with conditions, it's when you're out up here on the top part. So you really can't see it, but there's two parts to this screen. The vendor and name is the top half, and all these tabs are the second half. So when you're up top, you can condition it and put rules in. So say you are trying to now you're trying to find any place where the state is empty. So state equal to nothing. You'll say okay, okay, and you'll go next. And so Fayette County Courthouse, I don't have any address for. Federal tax deposit, I don't have an address for. That's no surprise, but Finger Lakes Flooring, I have no address for. So if you're missing information, you can use that as a method to go through and find out what vendors are missing what. And then you can, contact that vendor, say we're trying to update our records, can I get an address, contact information, all that kind of stuff to complete it so that your records are more consistent again, because to me, consistency is really helpful. The next thing that I didn't go through was, I did in one of the videos, but attachments. So you can click on either that, which will give you a blank one. Here you can attach files, so you can put like a photo or an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or a JPEG or anything and attach it. You just have to say add and map to that item. And then it'll add a link to that here. The other thing you can do is on the Notes tab, put down notes. It automatically date stamps it and puts the person who's doing the note above it. So we do this like if we put an invoice on hold for that vendor, or we put the vendor on hold for some reason. Say we got an IRS levy. We might make a note there on that. So that's a second thing. You can also get to that by clicking down here on attachments. It both does the same thing. The next thing is pre-fills, and you'll find that it's not really very helpful on the vendor setup screen, but it is on other stuff. So all pre-fills does is if you put in something here, like say we're in Binghamton, so we put in Binghamton, New York, and a zip code, and click save, then every vendor that we go to after that to set up, it'll automatically fill that in. So, like I say, for vendors, it's not very useful. For invoices, it could be. Lists is the next thing. So, you can list vendors by their vendor number Or if you're over here, it lists them by their name. So depending on which field you're in, it will put them in that order. If you're over here in the vendor ID and you click list, you can also switch to vendor name here and back. So depending on which order you want them in is searchable there, I guess. The next item I wanted to talk about is on names, and I'll show you the help screen for it because I don't know off the top of my head any that I have, but it's how you list a name that's a person. And so if it's just a normal company, you can put them by their company name. If it's a company, like for example, we were talking about, I forget the name, but say AJ Hudson or something like that, you can put that one in using this format. So you'd put it in as like Hudson Company Incorporated, semicolon, space, AJ. And that way it would alphabetize it under the H's rather than under the A's. So using a name function like that is also helpful if you've got a trucker that's just John Smith. You don't want him under J, you want him under S for Smith. So you do Smith, colon, space, John. The next item I knew I forgot was address book. So address book is this funky little thing here. I do believe, yes. So you can go up the address book and you've got a whole mess of names and addresses out there at company level. And you can go into those, and once you type in this name, you can come out here and try and find somebody like that. And I'm not sure if this is smart or not. F-I-N. Yes, it is. So it takes you down to approximately where that is, Finger Lakes Flooring. And you can then tie that back to this vendor in AP vendor settings. So the two names are connected. The advantage of that is if there's a quote for doing some work out in estimating, and they're using that vendor in estimating, that same vendor information will flow over now to accounts payable and kind of links the two. The downside of that is we've found a lot of times we'll have on the address book Finger Lakes Flooring 10 different ways. So it doesn't always link it the way you want. But it's one thing you do want to look at. And this thing will also give you some information on linking. And the other thing was a summary vendor. And I know I described it as being like somebody that just walks in the door, kind of. There's usually one summary vendor set up, and it's typically called one time. So O-N-E, and you've got one time vendor here. And so you can see you have very little information for it. It's considered summary. We don't put much in here because everyone's different. But when you go to put an invoice in for a summary vendor, and I will close out of here and go into enter invoices. Let's see, tasks. Well, I might. There we go. Enter invoices. Here. And you put in the one time, O-N-E, and one time vendors. It then pops up a screen to enter a name and address for that particular vendor. That's the only type of a vendor that will let you put in a name separate from what's in the vendor setup. So again, that's the summary vendor. And those are all the corrections I had from the last video. So we'll catch you on the next video where we'll continue with accounts payable setup. That's it for today. Thanks much. Bye now.